Good Monday to you. So much news over the weekend. It is believed that more than 5,000 Iranians were mowed down in the streets of Tehran and throughout the country by the security services in the service of the Ayatollah Khomeini. Khomeini did the original revolution. Khomeini is the supreme leader who succeeded him decades ago. So it's no holds barred now. President Trump is weighing his options at this hour. He gave the Iranian regime many warnings on Truth Social a week ago, on this program on Thursday, on Sean Hannity's program on Thursday night. And then last night on Air Force One, he was asked by reporters, and he said, well, they've asked for negotiations, but they've apparently, we'll bring you that tape a little bit later, but they've apparently decided to go with killing people. Now, the Iranians, according to President Trump, and of course he's got great credibility right now, have offered to negotiate. I don't know what they have to negotiate over. They've killed 5,000 of their own people. And President Trump told them, don't do that, and they did it. And then Khomeini went on the air and made fun of Trump and the United States over the weekend. So although the Wall Street Journal is reporting at this hour that there's division in the ranks within the administration, perhaps there is. Let me read you the story. The White House is weighing a last-ditch Iranian offer to engage in diplomacy over curbing its nuclear program. We curbed President Trump obliterated their nuclear program, even as President Trump currently leans towards authorizing fresh military strikes on Iran. Some senior administration aides, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, are urging Trump to try diplomacy before retaliating against Iran for killing protesters during a 2-week uprising over a flailing economy and regime repression. I don't believe that, by the way. I think that is a made-up thing by people who are not actually J.D. Vance talking to the Wall Street Journal, by the isolationist wing. I think the vice president will support whatever the president decides to do. Speaking Sunday to reporters on Air Force One, Trump said that Tehran messaged Washington a day earlier that it was willing to enter negotiations over its years-long nuclear program. I'll talk with Mark Dubovitz about this a little bit later, CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. The president said a meeting is being set up, though the U.S. is still looking at, quote, very strong options. There is a word as well that he will meet with senior aides Tuesday to determine his approach. I hope that approach is to hit, as he promised to do. Presidential credibility is earned in ounces and lost in pounds, just like truthfulness and reliability is earned in ounces and lost in pounds. Everybody believes that Donald Trump threat right now. All right, he threatened Operation Midnight Hammer, and he delivered on it. He threatened Maduro, and Maduro laughed at him, and Maduro is in a jail cell in New York City. So the president's credibility literally could not be higher right now. It could only be damaged if he walks it back and engages in the favorite tactic of the Iranian theocrats. Delay, 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 divide, play off of the best hopes and the worst fears of Americans. So here is President Trump on Air Force One yesterday talking about, to a CNN reporter, about the Iran threat that he has made and whether or not Iran takes it seriously. Cut number 6.
Do you think Iran takes your threats seriously?
I think so. Don't you think so, CNN? Don't you think so? Wouldn't you say that they probably do at this point? After going through it for years with me, being hit, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, the Iran nuclear threat wiped out, don't you think, and then you just had Venezuela, don't you think, she says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question.
Ha! It really is a stupid question. Of course they take the threat seriously. That's why they're begging for negotiations, because the president can bring down that regime with 3 days of air campaign. I mean, a concerted effort, maybe with Israel, maybe without. John Fetterman went on CNN and gave his statement. This is the Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, cut number 2.
Sure, absolutely. And now if it continues to make more sense, absolutely. I think I was the only Democrat that fully supported our strike of their Iranian nuclear facilities last year. And now, by then, without those kinds of strikes, Iran could have acquired a nuclear bomb. I think I hope we can all agree that Iran should have never acquired a nuclear bomb. And Iran is one of the world's top terrorist underwriter. And now you have that poisonous regime now in spiral. So why wouldn't we want to support that? And those brave protesters, they've killed probably more than 600 by now. So now, why would we want to have the kinds of targeted kinds of action that could break that regime?
There are sources do tell CNN that there are concerns inside the Trump administration, though, that taking military action, military strikes, could actually backfire and undermine the protests by swelling support for the Iranian government. Do you see that?
Yeah, if it makes sense. Again, if those strikes make sense, absolutely, I do support those things. You know, I don't know exactly what the conversation is. I'm saying I'm open to that, and I am actually inspired by the real kinds of courage that those protesters in Iran are demonstrated now. So I don't know why we can't all want to support that, to back them and now bring that awful regime, to its knees. No, that's where it's at right now. They're so desperate. Now they killed the internet, and now they're mowing down their own citizens. Now they're even so desperate, offering $6 a month as some kind of a payoff now too. Now for me, I think we can all agree that the world would be better, safer, and more just if you could break that regime.
I do not believe legacy media saying that there are forces inside the White House who are counseling against striking the regime after President Trump made those threats. I don't believe it. I think it's useful for the legacy media narrative, but I do not believe it. David Ignatius is the senior national security voice for legacy media in Washington, been a columnist for the Washington Post for many, many years. I know David. He's very reliable. Here's what David said on Morning Joe this morning, cut number 4.
So the best case scenario is that a regime whose security forces are weak, are rusty, that failed to help its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and in Iran itself couldn't fend off an Israeli attack last June, that regime, if hit hard, will begin to crack.
What does it mean to hit it hard?
So what it means, I think, is heavy munitions striking barracks, bases, certainly missile production facilities that the Iranians would use to retaliate. But to show the Iranian people that this security force, which is hated by a lot of the country, isn't so tough that they're going to crush you. They're themselves on the run. I think that's what it would look like. It would be barracks, logistic resources, and those things can be done. People have noted we have no aircraft carrier strike group in the region. That's true, but you don't need one. I'm told we have enough aircraft in Europe. Enough missiles that could be launched to hit the targets that it's not necessary to move the Gerald Ford or any other aircraft carrier task force into the region right now.
And this is what Trey Yinks on Fox News reported, cut number 3.
Dana, good morning. Intense anti-government demonstrations erupting across Iran over the weekend were met with a brutal crackdown. A source in Tehran speaking with Fox News via Starlink described security forces open firing into crowds of people, using tear gas and arresting thousands. Human rights organizations say at least 544 people have been killed over the past 2 weeks. But with an ongoing internet blackout, the confirmed number is expected to increase significantly. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian made a public address yesterday discussing the clashes.
Don't need to hear regime propaganda. There are very reliable estimates of more than 5,000 murdered by the regime over the weekend. Hopefully President Trump and Elon Musk work together to get Starlink working, although I'm not sure Starlink can work in Iran to the extent that it worked in Ukraine, because the government in Ukraine welcomed it and put up terminals to receive it. The Iranian regime will try and stop those terminals from being activated and tracked down. So it's tremendously courageous of the Iranian people to rise up and walk in the streets as they are. And President Trump made a warning on this show, on Sean Hannity's show on Thursday night. He did it on Truth Social. He has made a lot of warnings, and they have been disregarded by the regime. His credibility is high. I don't think he ought to be talked out of hitting them, and I believe the Israelis ought to go along with us and hit the regime. There are only 150,000 IRGC. Those are the toughest. There are a couple, maybe even a million besieged, but those are just thugs. They might have weapons, but they're thugs. I'm reading the latest report from the Times of Israel on what the cost and the death toll is in Iran. I'll just read it to you. The death toll in the anti-regime protests that have taken Iran by storm over the past 2 weeks hit 648. An activist group said Monday evening as Tehran staged major pro-regime rallies and reportedly reached out to the U.S. to de-escalate tensions after President Trump's repeated threats of intervention if large numbers of protesters are killed. The latest tally reported Monday, today, by Norway-based Iran Human Rights, which said the actual toll could be far higher. Quote, the international community has a duty to protect civilian protesters against mass killing by the Islamic Republic, said IHR Director Mahmoud Amari Moghadam. IHR said, according to some estimates, more than 6,000 people have been killed. He warned that the almost 4-day internet blackout imposed by Iranian authorities makes it, quote, extremely difficult to independently verify these reports. More than 10,000 people have been detained, according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news network, but we really don't know. The Iranian foreign minister spoke with Steve Witkoff over the weekend. Now, I think Mr. Witkoff is pretty doggone good at what he does. He pulled off the Gaza deal. He is trying to bring Putin to the table, and he's not succeeding, but he's working very hard. I don't know that there's any fruit to be borne by talking to these liars, murderers, and thugs in Tehran. I followed this regime since 1979. They are merciless. They are brutal. They torture. They kidnap. They kill Americans. They killed 1,000 Americans in Iraq with their IEDs that they perfected in Iran and smuggled them to Iraq for their Shiite-based militia groups. They have created terrorism around the world. There is no way you believe anything that they say. They're not worth negotiating with. President Trump gave them repeated warnings, first on Truth Social, then on this program, then on Sean Hannity's program, again over the weekend on Truth Social, and then on Air Force One last night. Now, there's a longer exchange which we're looking for on Air Force One, but I want to replay for you again. A CNN reporter came up to Donald Trump and asked him, do you think they take you seriously? Now, what I would like to ask you before I play that, my phone number is 1-800-520-1234. Do you want to see the United States use military force? And by the way, we've got it in the region. There are F-22s at the air base in Qatar. All right, so the F-22 is the greatest fighter in the world. They'll never see it coming. We can coordinate with the Israelis. I do not doubt that we've got Ohio-class submarine near there. There are lots of things we can do. We can refuel planes in the air from Europe. We do not have a carrier task force group in the Middle East right now, but that doesn't mean we cannot hit them very hard in places where it hurts, which is what President Trump said. My number is 1-800-520-1234. It's the biggest story in the world. I know about the Minnesota story. I'm going to talk with Steve Hilton, who's running for governor in California. In next hour, I'm going to talk with Admiral Mark Montgomery in hour number 3. I have David Bonson coming on. I got Mark Dubovich, though, CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, the go-to guy on Iran in the United States, coming up in hour number 2. But I want to hear what you have to say. But first, here is the president. Last night, a CNN reporter asked, do you think Iran takes your threat seriously? Gosh, what a dumb question. Cut number 6.
Do you think Iran takes your threats seriously?
I think so. Don't you think so, CNN? Don't you think so? Wouldn't you say that they probably do at this point? After going through it for years with me, being hit, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, the Iran nuclear threat wiped out, don't you think, and then you just had Venezuela, don't you think, she says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question.
You see, I managed to get through 20 minutes with the president on Thursday without asking a stupid question. Because he'll tell you when you ask it. By the way, I've caught some of those flies. I've got a couple of Trump tattoos when he didn't like the question. But that one really is base level dumb. All right, we can put base camp for dumb right there, because when the president makes a threat 4 times, first time maybe you misinterpreted it, second time he gave him a little wiggle room on my show. By the time Sean Hannity was on, there was no wiggle room whatsoever. And then he repeated on True Social, and then on Air Force One, he did it again. He's doing that for a reason. Take the president seriously. Let me talk with Bill in New Brighton, Pennsylvania, on line 3. Hello, Bill. You're on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Oh, I didn't expect that. You caught me off guard.
Well, you're on.
Okay. Yeah, with the Iran, I mean, there's tons of stuff, right? I know you know that. But strategically, just like they did taking out Venezuela's leader, you know what I mean? Minimal death. And I'm pretty sure that's why it's taken a little longer. What do you think?
We're going to be sending in the 101st Airborne. I don't think they're going to be boots on the ground. Excuse me, my earpiece just popped out there, so I don't want to make sure I hear you. I don't think they're going to be boots on the ground. I don't believe that we're in that business anymore. But I do believe there's a lot that can be done with jet fighters, with B-2s, and with submarine-launched Tomahawk missiles.
Well, all I'm saying, and I agree 100%, everybody's like, oh, we're attacking. No, we ain't. If we don't, they're gonna. Us.
They're going to continue to mow down demonstrators until we stop them. So I think we ought to come to the assistance of the very brave Iranian people. Thank you, Bill. Daniel in Minnesota. What do you think, Daniel?
I completely agree with you, Hugh Hewitt. I want to see these Ayatollahs and Khamenei and all those people in whatever they call their state legislature or whatever you want to call it. I want to see them go to hell as quickly as possible, courtesy of the U.S. military and President Donald Trump. Thank you very much.
I will ask Mark Dubovitz when he comes on whether or not we ought to target the regime leaders, including the Ayatollah. There's been reluctance to do that in the past, but I think the IRGC bases and the besieged bases make a lot of sense. Devin in Orlando, Florida. Hi, Devin. You're on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hey, Hugh. Let Iran do what Iran do. Let's get the heck up out of there. We don't bomb them once, and we did what we had to do. We got all the problems over here in America. We got local law officials threatening federal law officials, police officers. We got citizens calling for the gun down of federal agencies. We got enough problems here.
Oh, we can walk and chew gum. Just because a bunch of crazy leftists are in the streets of Minnesota doesn't mean the American military can't come. They're actually firing machine guns into crowds, Devin.
It seems like it's not American people first. It seems like it's America first, but it's not American people first. I get that, Hugh. But there's countries around the world that dictate how they treat their own citizens. We could not be the Roman Republic or the Greek democracy.
We are not the Roman. I'm not talking about occupying. I'm talking about the fact it would take about 3 days of bombing, and the Iranian people would overthrow the mullahs, and the world would be better for it. Hey, thank you for the call, though. 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. I do want to take some more calls on whether or not President Trump ought to follow through on his threats. I believe when you make 4 threats, and the president's made at least 4, don't murder your people. Done that 4 times, or you will be hit very, very hard. You lose a lot of credibility if you don't follow through. That's what I believe. What do you think? Dean in New Jersey. Hi, Dean.
Yeah, hi. We most definitely should do this with Trump style, because every loving American has to realize that if France didn't come through for us, we would be, at best, just a bunch of colonies, at worst, a whole bunch of different countries, and we'd be in the same shape as Europe. So absolutely go after them in Trump's style.
Thank you much, Dean. Let me talk to Don in Los Angeles. What do you think, Don?
Hi, Hugh. Great show. President Trump has to do what he said he's going to do, or else it's just like Barack Obama's red line becomes a pink line, then no line. Yeah, they should fear us now. If they're still doing these things, a wounded animal is the most dangerous, and they're dangerous right now, but you got to take them down. I would say strike the Revolutionary Guard, and as Mr. Oren suggested, try to get the regular army in Iran to rise up on the side of the people, because this government is gone. It just can't govern anymore.
I will ask Dr. Oren that very question after the break. Thank you, Don. Christian in Houston. Hello, Christian. What do you think?
Pleasure to talk to you, Hugh. I think protecting Iranian people, or should I say Persian people now, is a worthy goal. I think anything that weakens the regime weakens China as well. This is all a big chessboard, and Trump has taken pieces off the board.
I hope you're right. What about the reports that there are voices inside his administration that don't want him? And they're using the old argument that, it'll make things worse. That's ridiculous, by the way. It won't make things worse. It'll make things... If you're a demonstrator in Iran, if you've had the courage to go to the streets and you haven't been arrested or murdered, what do you want the president of the United States to do right now?
Absolutely take out the leadership. Those folks are the problem. You've got really good people. I know quite a few folks from the Iranian area, and they miss the old days of the Shah. Bring it back.
Well, I'm not sure who will emerge. The president told me there are a lot of people who might emerge, and it's not up to us to pick a ruler, but I think it is for us to stop them from mowing down their people by the thousands. Thank you, Christian. Matt in Arizona. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Hugh. I'm just wanted to offer an interesting perspective in terms of the question of how much should we be involved. I think 10% of our time, 10% of our money, energy, military forces. Obviously, we don't want a quagmire. I just wanted to see what you think of using tithe as a way of approaching this.
Well, I don't know what exact percentage of our strength this represents. It's not a lot. A few airwaves is not much of American military arsenal and capacity. So it is certainly, I think, worth the candle to stop massacres. And the pictures that have gotten out are awful. And power washing the streets to get the blood off in the morning, that's gotten out. I don't even know if 5,000 is high enough. So I think whatever it takes to get them to stop mowing down their citizens, I'm in favor of, except not American troops. We can't send American troops in there. Thank you, Matt. Jason in Wisconsin, Sheboygan. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Hugh. Thank you very much for taking my call. So I am a retired cop, and I'm a retired international police mission veteran. There's two reasons we should help the people of Iran. Number one is the altruistic reason, because it's just the right thing to do. Number two is world peace equals peace and prosperity and security at home. The leadership of Iran has been the number one sponsor of terror around the world, right? I was a little disappointed when Trump didn't cut off the head of the snake when we were already there bombing the nuclear sites. Like you said, we don't get to decide who gets in there, but if another bad actor gets in there, we can simply take them out again. We can rinse, wash, and repeat as many times as we have to. If the Iranian people want freedom, we should help them to get that freedom by taking out those horrible people who would murder them.
I agree with you completely. Thank you, Jason. Let me talk to Antoinette before we run out of time. Antoinette, you got less than a minute, but I wanted to get you on. You're in Los Angeles.
No, my love. I'm in California, in Orange County, Sunset Beach, California.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, good to have you.
Not L.A. County. So, yeah, I am behind our president. This is the consummate moment. He's got to attack now. Hopefully he's not saying anything to anybody else, but you just do it. I'm with him 1,000%. These poor people in Iran, and I have a number of different friends that are Iranian. We prayed for them on Sunday. Our church, Calvary Chapel of the Harbor.
Good for you, and I hope everyone else is joining you in that effort. Antoinette, thank you. Joined now by former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Dr. Michael Oren from Israel. Dr. Oren, welcome. What is your assessment of the situation in Iran, and what ought the United States to do, and why?
The situation in Iran is very troubling, certainly. Hundreds, potentially thousands of people being killed, going out to protest for freedom from this heinous regime. Very disturbing, and it impacts all Israelis. We're all there for the people of Iran. Before 1979, they were our close allies, and we look forward to being allied with them and close to them once again. Having said that, great skepticism here about whether these protests can actually bring down the regime. We're talking about a country of 90 million people. I don't know how many tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands are out protesting, but still it's not 90 million. And the regime has immense means at its disposal for suppressing these demonstrations. We're talking about an army of almost 500,000 soldiers, a guard, an Islamic Republican Guard, Revolutionary Guard of close to 500,000 soldiers, plus the besieged. These are these paramilitary thugs. There may be 5 million of them. And so the Iran regime has just begun to fight. Now, whether the United States will intervene or not, I think it's always, at this point, I think it's a mistake to gainsay what the president says or question what the president says. And if he says the United States is willing to use force, I think he very much means it. I think the American military would like to gather that force, assemble that force within striking distance of Iran. Though, American strategic bombers could take off in Idaho and be over the skies of Iran in a matter of 15 hours or even less. Still, I think the American military would like to have a very large military presence in the area, which includes moving carrier strike forces, which may take a few weeks. Having said all that, my gut feeling, Hugh, is that this is going to end in some type of deal. And I think there are intimations both from the Iranians and the United States that contacts towards such a deal are already going on. What that deal may look like. That deal would look like something like Venezuela, where you get rid of the bad guys, get rid of the bad mullahs, which may be redundant. I don't know of any good mullahs. And there are elements in the IRGC who say, well, let us take over and we will reorient Iran back to the United States, which would be a tremendous, not just financial victory for America. Iran, of course, a major supplier of oil, but also give the United States immense leverage over the Chinese, because the Chinese economy is almost entirely dependent on Iranian oil. Think about that, what that would mean for America and the world without firing a single shot. For Israel, the outcome would be okay. It could be much better if the regime would disappear entirely, but a regime that has been defanged and now newly connected with the United States, not with Russia, not with China, is very much in Israel's interest.
Now, Dr. Oren, Donald Trump has threatened 4 times Iran. If they murdered their people, he would hit them. He did it on Truth Social a week ago. He did it on this program on Thursday. He did it on Sean Hannity's program on Thursday night. He did it on Truth Social overnight and on Air Force One. So it's really 5 times he's warned the Iranians. And now the numbers are horrific. Up maybe more than 5,000 people gunned down, 10,000 people taken into custody. Can he afford not to do something, at least hit a missile factory, hit some IRGC facilities, do something to back up his threat?
He certainly could. And I think when the president puts a credible military threat on the table, he intends to use it. He puts that pistol on the table, not just as previous administrations would put a pistol on the table and had no intention of using that pistol. It actually broadcast American weakness. When President Trump has put that pistol out there, he intends to use it, and that's strength. We saw how it worked in achieving the release of Israeli hostages. We saw how it worked in framing the Abraham Accords. It has worked again and again, and it can work here. But the answer, work how? If you bomb IRGC headquarters, if you bomb missile silos, it's not going to bring down the regime. Again, you're going to still have, the 5, 6, 7 million armed people who are going to come out of that regime and knock these protesters on the head and kill them. Because the regime is not going to go quietly into that good night. And it could also result, the regime may turn around and fire some missiles at Israel, and that would bring Israel into the fray as well. I think that the use of military force is the means to an end. And the end probably is a negotiated end, where the Iranians will give up their nuclear program. They will surrender their highly enriched uranium. They will mothball a large segment of their intercontinental ballistic system. And as I said earlier, will reorient their foreign policy and their oil policy toward the United States.
Dr. Oren, if Iran were to hit at Israel, in the sort of weird calculus that Saddam Hussein used in the 1991 Gulf War, when he invaded Kuwait, America led a coalition to oust him, and he sent Scuds at Israel. I don't think Israel will sit back this time as they were asked to do and did in 1991. What would the response from Israel be if Iran sends another wave of ballistic missiles its way?
Be massive. And I think that Donald Trump is not going to hold us back. I think that was clear from his most recent meeting with the prime minister. And that Iran no longer has air defenses. Iran is completely vulnerable. The minute they move those missiles out of their silos, they will be hit. And not just the silos. I don't think anybody will be immune from Israel's reaction First of all, and above all, the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Now, Dr. Warren, last question. The people of Iran are bankrupt. The rial has now fallen to something like 2 million for $1 American dollar, and it's falling still with the unrest. But we did not, neither Israel nor the United States, hit Karg Island, which is their major oil export facility. Is that on the table, in your view, if there's another round of conflict here?
I don't think so. I think the idea is to keep oil prices going down, not up. And hitting Karg Island would cause a spike in oil prices. I think one of the great benefits potentially of the Venezuelan operation is to reduce oil to $50 or even $35 a barrel, and which would, by the way, have the additional benefit of sort of bankrupting Russia. Think about this. This is the geostrategic ramifications of oil diplomacy. And I think the idea is to somehow get this regime to give up its nuclear program, give up its role as the largest state sponsor of terror in the world, maybe not open an embassy in Israel tomorrow, but certainly maybe have a de facto non-belligerency with Israel, and again, reorient its foreign policy toward the United States. At the same time, bring down oil prices that will certainly, I think, redound to the president and his party politically as the midterms are approaching. Think about this. Think about this as a multi-tiered chessboard, Hugh. There's much to be gained at this moment.
Dr. Michael Oren, founder of the Israel Advocacy Group. You can also follow him on X at Dr. Michael Oren, Dr. Michael Oren, Dr. Michael Oren on X. One of the people you can trust on this topic. Coming up at the start of the next hour, I'll be joined by Steve Hilton, who wants to be governor in California, and his new running mate. Gloria Romero used to be on the Los Angeles City Council. She used to be a Democrat. She's running with Steve Hilton. Now, they are independent races, so you don't vote for a ticket in California. You vote for two offices. But if Steve Hilton, the front runner, has tabbed Gloria Romero, she is going to pick up all the help that Steve Hilton can give her, and that's quite a lot. Stay tuned for that. Senator Cotton is also coming up. I will have Mark Dubovitz, who is the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. I'll also have Admiral Mark Montgomery, where Admiral Montgomery is retired from the United States Navy, has a lot to say about what and how we can deliver the very hard hit that President Trump has promised the mullahs if they killed their people, and estimates are at least 1,000 and maybe more than 5,000. I am in the Relief Factor studio, and I do want to take my Relief Factor because I had a great weekend. It was a beautiful weekend in California. I went down to Huntington Beach, got 10 miles in. Now, I trundled for the first 3/4 of that, and then I had to walk the last 2 miles in because that's just too much for me. But I will say, Sunday was a little uncomfortable, right? I went farther and faster than I've gone since October because the weather was so beautiful and I had nothing else on the schedule. Didn't have to do any Fox hits or anything else. So I went a little bit further than I normally did. And, it really felt that way at 4 o'clock Mass in the afternoon and then at the Presbyterian service on Sunday morning. However, I'm great today. And the reason is very simple. I haven't taken anything today. No Aleve, no over-the-counter, nothing like that. I am about to take my Relief Factor, which I do every day, and there they are, the 4 pills. I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, omega, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. And they go down. And that's why I feel good today. 10 on Saturday, and I went up the implacable hill today, and I'm going to be 70 in a month. And I'll tell you why I can do that, because I've been exercising for a long time. I've been trundling for a long time. That's part one. Part two is I take Relief Factor every day. It helps your body's anti-inflammatory system kick in, reduce the minor aches and pains that come with exercise, even if you overdo it a little bit, like I did on Saturday, more than you normally do. And you also get those minor aches and pains as you get older, and you're definitely doing the latter. You got older today than you were yesterday, and you should be exercising. Whether you're doing one or both, then go to Relief Factor, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF. The starter pack is $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Or go to their Find That Starter Pack as well at their website, relieffactor.com. Con in Los Angeles, what do you think we should do, Con? Hello, Con, you're on.
It helps your body.
Hey, Con, you got the radio on in the background. There's a delay. Okay. Sorry, Con. Goodbye. Obviously, a rookie radio listener. You cannot put yourself on hold and go listen to the show. Then you're not there when I ask you for your comment, and then I have to move on. Con, you can call back next hour. I might get back the calls again. I'm so pleased to welcome back Steve Hilton, who I hope is the Golden State's next governor, and his running mate, former state Senator Gloria Romero, which was a bit of a surprise because she used to be a Democrat, and I think it's the first time she's ever been on the show. So welcome to you both. Steve Hilton, let's talk about why you've asked Gloria Romero to be your running mate. Then I got questions for Gloria Romero on when she saw the light.
Fantastic. Well, I love it. Great to be with you, Hugh. Happy New Year. Lovely to see Gloria as well. We're going to be in person later today in Los Angeles. Look, I've always said that this is going to be a tough fight, an uphill battle to turn around California, to save our beautiful state. And it's not just going to be one person in one role. I've always seen it as a team effort, a team that's going to turn around California, both in terms of the need to elect Republicans at every level in California, the state legislature, county boards of supervisors, school boards, and so on, and also across the board, the other statewide offices. It's a massive state, the biggest in America, the fourth biggest economy in the world. I understand about putting together and leading a team. That's how I've always operated when I've started businesses, back in the day working in the UK government. So I've always seen it like that. And in fact, there will be more announcements about the team that's taking shape in the days and weeks ahead. But today, the focus is on my running mate, running for Lieutenant Governor Gloria Romero. That's not normally done. In fact, it's the first time it's been done in California. These are independently elected positions. And so this is a first in terms of a ticket. But we are very excited about it for two reasons. Number one, Gloria's story is so powerful. She'll tell you about that in a moment. Walking away from the Democrat Party, the area she represented in the legislature, her understanding of the Latino community, but also the second big point, her understanding of the legislature. I'm running as an outsider to shake up Sacramento, to end the corruption, the failure, and the bloat, and the fraud, and we'll get to all that as well. But Gloria, having served in the legislature, she really knows how things work there, or I guess the right term would be don't work. And so she's going to be an incredibly trusted guide for me in terms of making things actually happening and delivering the change that we need. So here we are today, making the announcement. A golden ticket.
Let me turn to Senator Romero. Senator, you may or may not remember, I did the nightly news in L.A. from 1992 to 2002. You were a Democrat's Democrat. So what happened, and welcome aboard?
Thank you. Again, too, I think with anything, it's always a process overall. If you talk with anybody who worked with me while I was in Sacramento, people knew that I worked across the aisle. And I took on some of the biggest challenges even back then as a Democrat. I was one of those Democrats, I always have been, who believes in school choice. That meant taking on the number one political backer of the Democrat Party, the teachers union. But I did that, and people in Sacramento knew that way back then. I actually have a bipolitical family. Half of the kids are and have been Republican. The other half are Democrats. We are family. We believe in having the right to, it's America. You get to say how you feel. And so I've always been very comfortable talking, debating, etc. But the final push was really, even after I left the legislature, still trying to bring about change within the Democrat Party. When we saw the political coup in which, even at that point, a bad candidate, Joe Biden, but essentially being pushed out in the back room by movie stars and others, it was just a bridge too far. And so like many other Democrats, Tulsi Gabbard, Leo Terrell, others, we decided, and I talked about it and said, I'm out of here. I cannot stay any longer. And so
Senator, would you remind me of where you were both in the Assembly and the State Senate? Were you in Eslos? Where was your district located? I can't remember that much.
The numbers have changed, but I was the 24th Senate district. That's the east side of Los Angeles.
I was right.
East LA, and a good chunk of the San Gabriel Valley. So that was pretty much my district.
What a great choice, Steve Hilton, because she did run for, Senator Romero ran for superintendent of schools when I lived in California. I was excited about that because she's a school choice advocate. How long did it take you to make this decision, and who picked up the phone first?
Well, I'll get into that because I've been wanting this to happen for a long time. Gloria and I first met on that issue of school choice when she was working with Rick Grinnell on a ballot initiative, a statewide ballot initiative. I had them both on my show on Fox to talk about that. And then we met in person and we got to know each other. When I started my California-focused policy organization, really the first step towards the decision I made to run for governor, Golden Together, that's the name of the organization, nonpartisan policy organization, I asked Gloria to be on the board of that organization. And we've been working together on policy, in particular education policy, for years now. And as that process has gone on, and I've gotten to know Gloria as a friend and a partner in policy and a colleague, I came to the view that this would be a great fit. And so I've been asking Gloria for quite a while now that whether she would consider this. And I'm very, very happy and proud that she said yes. And here we are today making this wonderful announcement.
Senator Romero, I want to go back to, you were a hammer. You were a good Democratic leader. My friend John Campbell was serving at the same time you were. He was on the other side of the aisle. You were very good at what you did. How shocked are your former Democratic colleagues that you're doing this, and will any of them come along and join you and Steve Hilton in trying to turn our bankrupt state around?
Well, I think when I actually converted to being a Republican, I don't think many of my former colleagues were shocked because they had seen the progression over the years, the advocacy on school choice, et cetera, women's rights, a number of issues overall. Certainly the announcement today, I'm sure many of them are really surprised at that. But I believe that they are aware that I'm committed. When I became a Republican, I said, look, I want to do my share, my part in making California great again. And with Steve Hilton, we've had a very good long-running relationship and really trying to restore the California dream, putting that golden sheen back into California. So school choice issues is a major issue. If I can just say, why the lieutenant governor, it again too is looking at as a team, governor and the lieutenant governor. But when you look at the lieutenant governor, which I often kind of joke about and say it's sort of like the Seinfeld of statewide politics in California.
Yes.
Nobody knows what the LG does, but the lieutenant governor serves on the bodies of the UC regions, the Board of Governors for the community college system, also as a trustee for the CSU. And on education, that's almost half the state budget. I'm a product of all three of those systems, both having been a student and having been a professor in those systems. So it's a natural fit for me to really work with Steve, advocating on school choice, meritocracy and admissions, performance, et cetera. So it's a natural fit overall.
Steve Hilton, we've got about a couple minutes left. Would you remind people what the website for the campaign is, how they can help you? And there are like 25 Democrats running. Which one? Katie Porter has fallen like a rock. Who are you going to be running against?
Well, it looks like I want to keep saying they're not sending their best, because right now the person that's risen to the top is Eric Swalwell, if you can believe it. Eric Swalwell. Look, I don't know. There may be others getting into the race. We don't know yet. You got the billionaire climate fanatic Tom Steyer, through spending a lot of his own money. He's now climbing in the polls as well. Look, it doesn't matter who they send, because we need change in California. We cannot have. This is the 16th year now of one-party rule. 16 years of one-party rule. It's not healthy, even if they weren't a complete failure on every front, but they are a complete failure. And that's one of the things that we've been highlighting. Just the fraud, that as I was been saying, the first time that when the Minnesota scandal came to light, however bad it is in Tim Walz's Minnesota, that it's 1,000 times worse in Gavin Newsom's California. And so we've been highlighting that and all these other failures. The 1-year anniversary of the fires last week, preposterous state of the state speech from Gavin Newsom, where he ludicrously claimed that we're a blueprint for the nation, where we're actually with the highest poverty rate, highest unemployment rate, highest cost for gas, electric, rent, water, insurance, worst business climate, highest inequality. everything is a failure. And
we are a blueprint for assisted suicide of a state. That's what we are a blueprint for.
We're building a movement for change. Look, Steve Hilton steveHiltonforgovernor.com, FOR, Steve Hilton for Governor. Volunteer. We've got a really cool volunteer program going on right now. By the way, on the fundraising, we're leading as well. We're leading in the polls. We're also leading on fundraising. We announced that today as well, or just about to, where we raised more money in the last 6 months than any other campaign on either side. It's really happening in California. I think we can make this work.
Well, I'm volunteering
and
to
turn our state
moderate.
around.
I'll moderate the Steve Hilton, Eric Swalwell debate, and Senator Romero, whoever they put up on the Democratic side against you, I'll moderate that as well, because I know what you're talking about. Congratulations to you, Steve, on a coup, and Senator Romero, keep coming back. California can be saved, but it can't be saved with Democrats. It just can't be. And I'm no longer a citizen here. I'm just visiting for a few weeks. But to get people to come back, they got to throw out the people that are running the state. Steve Hilton, Gloria Romero, thank you. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, is chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He has also followed for years the brutal Iranian regime. Senator Cotton, welcome. How do you assess the degree of violence in Iran? It's kind of closed off to us, but you might have sources that others of us do not have.
Hugh, you always introduce me as the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You never caveat that with the fact that it's an oxymoron. So I appreciate it, but we should always probably do so for our listeners. The situation in Iran, though, is no laughing matter. I think the violence is worse than what's generally being reported in the Western media and from outlets, or if you look at outlets such as the Committee on Human Rights in Iran or the Institute for the Study of War, they're getting it closer to right. I think the deaths now number in the thousands, not the hundreds. And, it's just past midnight in Iran tonight. They've had another big night of protests. And I think the regime, which doesn't have the ability or the desire to address the underlying grievances of its people, is resorting to one of its probably two only options, which is to increase the brutality towards the people. So I support the moral clarity President Trump has exhibited on this growing crisis and the threats he's made to the Ayatollahs, and certainly support the brave people of Iran who are yearning for freedom.
Senator Cotton, the president has made at least 4, I think now 5 threats, one of them on this show, to the regime, that he will hit them very hard, harder than they've ever been hit. The Wall Street Journal at this hour, though, after those 5 threats by the president, is reporting that the White House is engaged in an internal debate. Some senior administration aides, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, are arguing Trump to try diplomacy before retaliating against Iran for killing protesters. I personally don't believe that. Do you?
Well, I'm sure there may be some voices, Hugh, inside the administration who want the president not to enforce his own red line. But the only person whose opinion ultimately matters in the administration is the president. And time after time, he has enforced his red line. Sometimes he's enforced Barack Obama's red lines in Syria. Did it twice.
Well, I just don't think Vice President Vance would leak. Yeah. That's why I don't believe it. I don't think he would leak.
Well, he's made clear that he means what he says, and he says what he means. And he told Maduro, for instance, that he needed to go into exile, and Maduro was stubborn and pig-headed and dug in his heels, and now he's sitting in a jail in New York City. And he told the Ayatollahs to turn over all their nuclear program, and they didn't, and the nuclear program is now in smoldering ruins. So they should take him seriously, no matter what some of his more dovish advisors might be saying or trying to leak to the media.
Now, Senator, we do not have a strike group, a carrier strike group in the Middle East right now. Do we still have options for following through on President Trump's 5 threats directed at the Ayatollah?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say after Operation Midnight Hammer last June that blew up Iran's nuclear facilities and the operation to apprehend Nicolas Maduro, that the United States military has amazing capabilities that never puts any kind of operation outside of its grasp, no matter where this or that military asset may be located on the globe.
How weak do you think the regime there is? It seems to me, I've been following it for 47 years since the initial Iranian revolution against the Shah. It's never been weaker than right now, but I also believe that they probably butchered thousands of people in the streets in the last 4 days.
I think it's incredibly weak as it's been, maybe since the Ayatollah seized power in 1979. I don't think they can, whatever happens from these protests, I don't think they will ever be able to restore themselves to the aspirations they had just 6 months ago or 8 months ago, whenever it was, before Operation Midnight Hammer, of regional hegemony. I think they've been exposed to the second or even third-rate power, and their own people have had it with them, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, and that's why they're having to resort to this kind of brutality.
I would like to play for you, Senator Cotton, a segment of President Trump on Air Force One last night when a CNN reporter asked him if he thought that the Iranians took him seriously. Cut number 6.
I think Iran takes their threats seriously.
I think so. Don't you think so, CNN? Don't you think so? Wouldn't you say that they probably do at this point? After going through it for years with me, being hit, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, the Iran nuclear threat wiped out, don't you think, and then you just had Venezuela, don't you think, she says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question.
Senator Cotton, I got through 20 minutes with the president, and he didn't say I'd asked a stupid question, so I'm feeling kind of victorious after Thursday's interview, because he doesn't hold back when you ask a stupid question. That really is, I think he's got a lot of credibility. Does he lose any of it if he doesn't act?
It was a very stupid question. These liberal reporters live in a fantasy world, in a world that is not governed by force and by resolution. That's the world that our enemies live in. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, the supreme leader of Iran, world Nicolas Maduro is definitely living in now. They stand up and take notice anytime America displays strength and resolution, the way Donald Trump has done now since his return to office nearly a year ago. So, of course, they are paying attention to him and taking him seriously, even if a bunch of liberal reporters can't understand that. So there's no question that they understand it. I mean, their treatment of their view of President Trump is kind of like so many people's view of Kurt Signetti in Indiana. I mean, how many times do they have to stomp a top 10 or top 5 power before you take them seriously and don't think that they've got imposter syndrome?
I agree with that, by the way, and that's a very good analogy. In terms of options available to the president, they don't all have to be kinetic. Can they do anything to reconnect Iran to the outside world, because we don't know what's going on in the darkness?
Sure, I don't want to get into the precise details of every option, but no, suffice it to say the president has many options to help reduce the violence against the Iranian people and increase the pressure on the regime. Many different levers that the United States can pull.
Now, last question, Senator. We know Israel would applaud any application of force there. What about our Gulf state allies? Would they welcome the regime toppling, falling apart in Iran?
They might not be vocal about it, Hugh, but I think most Arab nations have had it with Iran and Iran's efforts to try to establish that regional dominance over Arab peoples. And many of those Arab nations have cooperated with us in the past in ways that don't often get a lot of publicity, but is very, very welcome from the United States standpoint.
Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your time today. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to come back later this hour with Mark Dubowitz. More of your phone calls during the break, 1-800-520-1234. Do you welcome President Trump taking kinetic military action against Iran, or something that we can see? I'm primarily concerned that we not end up with a Barack Obama red line that evaporates and all that follows, or a Joe Biden collapse of will in Afghanistan. Iran has always prospered. The mullahs, I should say the mullahs, not the Iranian people. The mullahs have always done well under Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. They haven't done as well when a Republican's been in office, and Donald Trump is their worst nightmare. I want him to stay that way. Stay tuned. What do you think? 1-800-520-1234. Coming up after the break, Mark Dubowitz, who is the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, joins me to talk about the massacre underway in Iran and going into its 5th day. This is the 15th day of demonstrations are underway tonight. The firing has begun again. Mordecai in Venice, California. What do you think the United States should do, Mordecai?
The United States should stand firm and go in there and help. And I think that you may have mentioned it 5 times that President Trump, a great leader and bull, has said he's going to do something. We'll figure it out. But Hugh, you're a breath of fresh air. I want to ask you to do me a favor. Can we substitute the word mass murder, violence, brutality to the word genocide? I'm Jewish, and I'm sick of them accusing Israel of genocide. This is what genocide looks like, America. This is what genocide and evil looks like. Can we use that word more often?
Well, Mordecai, there is a very specific definition of genocide, and it's only when it's been used against the Uyghurs. Of course, it was originally used against the Jews in Hitler's land, but it's been used by Pol Pot. It's been used in Rwanda. So it's got a very specific meaning, and I don't think they're trying to wipe out the Persian people the way that Hamas wanted to wipe out everyone in Israel, and anti-Jewish, anti-Semites everywhere in the world want to wipe out Jews. So I'll just stick with mass murder for the time being, but I hear you. Thank you, friend. Charles in Orlando, Florida. What do you say, Charles?
Hey, Hugh. I love your program.
Thank you.
You asked about kinetic activity, and Starlink has been made relatively ineffective because of the jamming that's going on there in Iran. And I think that's the part that needs to have kinetic action.
I don't know how to stop it, though. This is beyond I'm going to ask Mark Montgomery. Admiral Montgomery's coming up next hour. He's a cyber expert, and we'll find out what can be done to reconnect Starlink, if anything. It's always been my understanding that Starlink is available to anyone who's got the terminals to receive it, but I am not certain that the Iranian people have the terminals. We'll find out. Thank you. I do want to play again for the lefties out there. This is David Ignatius, very serious, very sober-minded, dean of the National Security Reporters in the United States, on Morning Joe this morning, cut number 4.
So the best case scenario is that a regime whose security forces are weak, are rusty, that had failed to help its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and in Iran itself couldn't fend off an Israeli attack last June, that regime, if hit hard, will begin to crack.
What does it mean to hit it hard?
So what it means, I think, is heavy munitions striking barracks, bases, certainly missile production facilities that the Iranians would use to retaliate. But to show the Iranian people that this security force, which is hated by a lot of the country, isn't so tough that they're going to crush you. They're themselves on the run. I think that's what it would look like. It would be barracks, logistic resources, and those things can be done. People have noted we have no aircraft carrier strike group in the region. That's true, but you don't need one, I'm told. We have enough aircraft in Europe, enough missiles that could be launched to hit the targets that it's not necessary to move the Gerald Ford or any other aircraft carrier task force into the region right.
I think David is right. Bill in Los Angeles, what do you think?
Hey, Hugh, I'm a couple of months younger than you, but I still remember the 1979 illegal takeover and stealing of our embassy by this regime. Trump's a developer. He should threaten to bomb the regime unless it returns our embassy and compensates us for 45 years of murder and kidnapping.
Well, I think his objective is the destruction of the regime and have them leave. But yes, we should get our embassy back. You know, I saw something on the web this morning which gave me some hope. Some smart person broke into the Iranian revolution, the Iranian embassy in America that's been empty since 1979. It's on Massachusetts Avenue. I used to run by it twice a day on the way up Mass Avenue, on the way back when I lived on Upper Connecticut Avenue. And I always ran past it. It's been shuttered since I moved to D.C. for good in 1983 and stayed there until 1989. Now I live in Virginia. But when I lived in D.C., I would run by it every day. Someone got into the Iranian embassy, which has been shuttered, and raised the imperial flag, the flag of the Shah and of the Crown Prince. And that is the flag that will be restored, I hope, sooner rather than later. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm coming back with Mark Dubowitz, who is the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Follow FDD at FDD on X. Follow Mark at M. Dubowitz on X as well. Very limited number of people you can trust. Mark is one of them when it comes to Iran. As you heard me say at the beginning of the show, the biggest story in the world is what's going on in Iran. And I know we all have our favorite interesting stories, and I cover the news as it breaks, but the biggest story in the world is in Iran. For 47 years, that tyranny has been in place. And for almost as long, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy has been working to bring it down and free the people of Iran. Joining us now is the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, Mark Dubowitz, who has been on with me before. He did a great podcast series last year on Iran, which had 12 parts. He added another part this weekend called Iran Breakdown. I recommend it to you. Mark, welcome. Let me start with what's your reaction to what's happened over the last 2 weeks and a day?
Well, Hugh, thanks so much for having me on. Look, Hugh, it's extraordinary. I mean, as you said, I've been working on Iran for 22 years, working with lots of administrations, including the Trump administration, both Trump administrations, on maximum pressure on the regime, but also encouraging maximum support for the Iranian people. And the Iranian people have been out on the streets since 2009, repeatedly calling for death to the dictator, end the Islamic Republic, establish relations with America, with Israel. And now, in the past 2 weeks, they've taken to the streets. Millions of Iranians are on those streets, but they're also getting mowed down by the security forces. Thousands of Iranians have been slaughtered. Tens of thousands have been arrested, tortured, and dozens executed. So it is a pivotal moment for the United States, for Iran, for the region.
So I stress to my audience, they can't trust what they see on X unless they know that the person on X is someone they can trust. They can trust you, they can trust Cliff May, Kareem Sadjoupor at Carnegie. You've got a lot of colleagues at FDD I'm pushing out. How do you tell, if you're just, newbie to the Iran issue, who to trust on this about what's going on there, since the regime is severed outside world contact with the people of Tehran and across all of Iran?
Yeah, I mean, here, listen, it's difficult to know what's going on the ground because, as you said, they've shut down the internet. They're interfering with Starlink access. Videos are still coming in, and we're certainly seeing what's happening on the ground. What do I trust? Look, I don't trust anybody defending the regime, number one. Number two, I don't trust anybody saying that U.S. intervention is going to lead to some kind of rally around the flag. The notion that millions of Iranians are on the streets and they're getting mowed down by the security forces, but somehow if President Trump intervenes and goes against the regime, these Iranians are going to defend the regime, I think is nonsense. So anybody saying that should not be trusted. I think there are a lot of good Iranian voices. My colleague Saeed Ghassamanejad, certainly Reza Pahlavi. I mean, he's all over social media, the crown prince, the son of the former Shah. He has been very articulate, and I certainly would trust many of the things that he's saying.
Okay, now let's talk about what the president can do. He was my guest last Thursday. And he said very bluntly, we'll hit them very, very hard if they kill people. But he also gave him a little bit of an out. He said some of these deaths were because of stampede. Later that night, he didn't use that out with Sean Hannity as much, and it's been totally abandoned by Sunday night. The president now knows there are thousands of people dead. I'm sure we've confirmed that to him. What could he do, in your view, that would be most effective in freeing Iran?
So I think there are a number of things he can do. I mean, first of all, is to target the security forces that are actually engaged in this brutal repression. Go after the repression apparatus. And you could do that through offensive cyber and or military strikes against the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Basij, the police. These are the people that are engaged in this brutal repression. Number two is he's already reached out to Elon Musk, is to try to restore or improve the Starlink connection. So these videos are coming out. Iranians are right now being murdered in the dark. They need to be brought to light. And that's very important. I think the president and Elon can do that. Number three, what Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump discussed at the end of December that you reported on, Hugh, was the growing and reconstituting Iranian missile program, which is going to represent a significant threat to the United States and Israel as it gets rebuilt. The Israelis are going to go take it out. I think better the United States takes it out, because if the United States takes out the missile program, Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is going to be quite reluctant to respond, because he knows that if he attacks the United States, that's the end of his regime. If the Israelis take it out, it's going to lead to another round. Iran will fire hundreds, if not thousands, of ballistic missiles at Israel, and we're going to be in a major war in the United States, and President Trump's going to have to deal with that. So I think President Trump, if he has the opportunity, take out those dangerous ballistic missiles, support the people, unlock the communications, go after the regime apparatus.
Mark, this is a difficult question for anyone to answer, but you'll know if anybody knows. I heard Kareem today in a podcast with Dan Senor say that the IRGC is 150,000 strong. All right, Iran's 90 million people, 10% is 9 million people, 1% is 900,000 people. So 150,000 IRGC members, that's a third of 1%. How hard is it to overthrow 150,000 thugs? It's a lot of thugs. They got a lot of guns. There aren't any other guns in Iran, but that's not a big police state. It's a relatively small, isn't it?
Well, there's 150,000 IRGC. There's probably 2 to 3 million members of the Basij, which is their militia. Those are the thugs that drive around on motorcycles and beat up and torture and kill Iranians. So you've got a couple of million there. And they're also importing thugs from Iraq. This is the Iraqi Hezbollah and the Shiite militias that they're bringing in. You're bringing in Arabs to kill Persians because in some cases the security forces don't want to turn their guns on their own people. So the regime's apparatus is formidable. But you're right. Listen, I mean, there's 92 million Iranians. And if 10% came to the street, they could overwhelm the security forces. And certainly some of them are armed, particularly some of the Kurdish groups, the Baluchis and others. So I think that's certainly a potential.
So, Mark, you're not old enough to remember the actual revolution. I watched it in real time with Ray Price and Richard Nixon and San Clemente, my second job out of college. People marched in the daytime then. Do you expect anti-regime marches to occur in the daytime?
Yeah, they are. They're occurring in the daytime. They're occurring in the nighttime. I mean, what I'm worried about, Hugh, is that if there's no U.S. intervention, that these protests are going to die off because of the brutal repression. And whether it's day or night, the guns are being turned on Iranians. Thousands are being slaughtered. At some point, they're just going to have to. They're going to stay home. And if they stay home, the regime is going to come out of this. Yes, a wounded animal, but a bitter one, a lethal one, a much more dangerous one. And I'd be worried that Iranians would never go back on the streets.
Follow Mark on X at @MDubovitz. Follow everyone at FTD @FTD. Mark is coming back next hour, so my drive time audience inside the Beltway hears him for 6 minutes to repeat a lot of this. So make sure you listen to both segments of my interview with Mark Dubovitz and follow him and follow the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Coming up next hour, Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, will be here to talk about what options the president has if he decides to strike back at Iran. I've just retweeted a video by Eric Doherty. The turnout in Tehran tonight is overwhelming. I don't know how many million people are out on the streets, but the regime is fighting and firing again. So we will see. Before I take your calls, let me remind you, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Last hour, I took my Relief Factor for the day. I needed it. Did 10 miles on Saturday down in Orange County at Huntington Beach, the best place to run in the country, or Trundle. I can't really say I'm a runner anymore. Trundle is to park in Newport Beach, run north for 5 miles, and then turn around and go back. It's the happiest place on earth in the world. And I was able to do it because of Relief Factor. And I have some ambitions to maybe do a half marathon this year and got to do more than 1:10. But I felt it. I felt it on Sunday because it's been a while since I'd done speed work, or what is for me speed work. I'm slower than a stone. But it was, and I paid the price the next day. Lactic acid. It's just, I've been running since I was 22, so I know what to expect. But it's gone today. Completely gone. I had no Aleve, no painkillers, no anything except Relief Factor. Icarian and curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. It works. It really works. You can try it for $19.95, 3-week starter pack. Take 3 packets a day on the first day, for the first week, every day, 3 packets a day. Second week, you take 2 packets a day. Then you're on the single packet a day, which I've been on for 13 years and 2 weeks now. And Relief Factor will come through for you. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Ask for the starter pack. It's $19.95, less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or just go to their website. You can find the starter pack there as well at relieffactor.com. Mark in Wisconsin. Hi, Mark. What do you say?
Hey, Hugh. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay, to me, the bottom line is peace through strength. If that means more missiles, so be it. Reagan proved that back in '79 that you already brought up. Jimmy Carter's helicopter rescue mission in that year was a total debacle, made us look weak. When Reagan came into office, the problem was solved. We can't ignore death to America, death to Israel, and at the same time, all these Iranian civilians being victimized at the same time.
And I don't think the president can make 5 threats, very explicit threats. We will hit you harder than you've ever been hit before, and then not do anything. He did just announce he is doing a secondary tariff, which is a big deal. 25% on any good from any country doing any business with Iran. That is a huge incentive for every country out there not to do business with the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's a good step. I hope more is on the way. I'll talk with Admiral Mark Montgomery, Rear Admiral Montgomery, after the break about what steps, what options are available. I'm joined by Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, now senior fellow with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. I had the CEO of FDD on last hour. Mark Dubowitz, part 2, is going to come up this hour. Admiral, I first want to begin by saying I listened to your conversation with Aaron McLean at the School of War. That was fascinating, and I had no idea that you liked the Arleigh Burke destroyer that much. I take a few people up and down that river where they've got 3 Burkes underway at any given time. There ought to be 10 underway at any given time.
No, you're absolutely right. The Arleigh Burke, we've built 80 of them. We've got 10 under contract. It is the singular best shipbuilding. It is the proof we can do things right when so many other things tell us we can't. It's a beautiful ship. I mean, the president and I are just going to have to agree to disagree on that. On top of it, by having 80 and now going to 90, you can defray costs of any individual change across 80 or 90 ships. So a $20 million change cost on that ship, $200,000. But on a DDG 1000, where we only have 3 ships, a $20 million change costs $7 million for that ship. So it's a beautiful class of ship built by both Ingalls and Bath Iron Works, in 2 different states, beautifully. It is the best large surface combatant in the world today, and it will be for the next 15 to 20 years because the investments we made in new Aegis baselines 9 and eventually 10, in new weapon systems, and in modernizing the hull and mechanical plant.
Every time I go by it, there's one ready to be commissioned. There's one in the final stages when they're putting the Aegis stuff on it, though it's behind the curtain. And then there's one that is just getting underway. So I think they're doing about one every 2 years. Is that about right up in Bath? I don't know what they're doing in Mississippi.
I'd say 1 per year in each yard. And it really gets out to closer to 2.5 per year between the 2 yards total. And there'll be perturbations where we launch 4 in a year, but then the next year only 2. You know how it is. But yes, and you know what? That's consistent shipbuilding. We bought the ones you're watching were bought in a lot of 9 ships that guaranteed both yards consistent, predictable money, so they could invest in modernization if they chose to, and they could invest in a workforce.
Now, Admiral, the president on this program on Thursday said he is asking for $1.5 trillion next year in the defense budget. That's great. Can it be banked if there's nowhere to spend it? I mean, can it be appropriated and banked over at either Bath Iron Works or Huntington Ingalls or whoever's making whatever General Dynamics down in Connecticut? Can that money be appropriated and spent but not outlaid?
So obviously we're talking about it's an extra $500 billion. The current budget this year is 901. It's gonna be it looks like 901 billion plus about 150 billion reconciliation. So it's going to be up there, maybe a little less than 150 billion of the reconciliation money spent. What he's talking about is increasing it 500 billion. That's a great question you're asking. I actually think that there are ways to do some of it, with shipbuilding, that you could get some multi-year money in there, but I think it'd be very challenging to spend all of it that fast. I think he's going to have challenges getting a 300 billion. I think the plan would be 300 billion reconciliation, a 150 to 200 billion dollar increase in base, which the Democrats would probably push for 150 to 200 billion in non-defense discretionary base. And I think at that point, everybody, from conservative financial circles, heads would explode.
Yeah, we don't want that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the Columbia class is not funded, but the defense, the whole triad depends upon it getting launched in 8 years, doesn't it?
It does. Look, I think that the Columbia class will, have some slippage and some cost overruns, but I actually think by current historical standards, it's going to be a good program. Look, the B-21's done fantastic. You got to give the Air Force a lot of credit. That thing is delivering close to on cost, close to on time. And one of the reasons is they've been very consistent, like not making significant changes to the platform while still in design. This is something where we failed on the Fincantieri class, on the Constellation class frigate at the Fincantieri Yard. The U.S. Navy got their fingers in the pie way too often, changing the requirements, and that was a major driver in our failure there. So the answer, Hugh, is we probably will get all this done. I don't think it'll be 8 years. I think it'll be 10. I don't think, if we say it's 100 billion, I think it'll be 120. But these are predictable increases in cost and growth.
All right. Well, I'm finally glad to hear some good news, and I was very encouraged by your conversation with Aaron McLean. I recommend everyone go to School of War. Now, what kinetic options does the president have available tonight? There are 1 million people in the streets of Tehran as you and I are talking right now. The images I've seen are extraordinary. If he wants to send a message to stop mowing them down, as has been happening for the last 4 nights, what can he do that gets the attention of the Ayatollah Khamenei and the IRGC?
So I think we have two. First of all, there's complaints we don't have a carrier strike group at this moment. That's true. But what we do have is a B-2 fleet that can operate, even if Israel had not rolled back the whole Iranian air defense networks, which they did, and then operated with some, not I would say ease, but consistency over Iranian airspace. Those B-2s delivering, each delivering, up to 25 to 50 precision guided munitions very accurately, could really do a number. These aren't the Fordo bombs. These are lots of small bombs, can be delivered very accurately, and they could get in and out safely. Also, we could use long-range strike Tomahawks from destroyers that are in the Middle East, and if there are submarines, particularly one of our modified SSGN Ohio-class submarines, then we could deliver a lot of Tomahawk as well. But really, I would be relying heavily on our penetrating bomber, the B-2 Stealth.
So, Admiral, you're a student of deterrence. We've talked about it a lot. The president has made the threat 5 times, as recently as Thursday on this show. Then he did it again on Sean Hannity's show. Then he did it on Air Force One last night. He did it on True Social over the weekend. How much does our credibility suffer if he does not follow through with a kinetic strike now?
So, first of all, this sounds a lot like Venezuela over 3 months, right? Now, the thing I'd say in fairness to the president, you don't say, I'm striking, and it's then that night. That's not fair to the military forces trying to plan around your lack of surprise. So the president handled Venezuela perfectly. 3 months of a maximum pressure campaign. I didn't agree with every tool he used, but he's president. And he did a great job with it. And by the time, he even did like a Title 50, it looks like intelligence strike one night around December 24th, just to send a signal, I will hit you. And then he hit him, right? And he grabbed Maduro. And so I think he's got a lot of credibility. And if I say I'm going to use force, I might use it on you. I guarantee China took an important lesson on the willingness of Donald Trump to use force. Now, in the case of Iran, he said it a lot. Look, conditions on the ground drive that. Can the application of our cost imposition make it safer or more likely for counter-regime forces to succeed? If they can, then he should use the weapons. But what he signals to them is, I'm willing to do it. And they know we can bring B-2s over their airspace since we did it already, early in 2025 with the Fordo strikes. So I think he's done the right thing. I don't think we'll lose credibility if he doesn't strike, only because he did it in Venezuela, and the conditions aren't perfect here in Iran just yet.
All right, last question. I don't know how Starlink works, but you do. You were the executive director of the Cyber Solarium. People keep saying Elon sent Starlink. It's my civilian understanding, which is zero, that you got to have receivers on the ground for a Starlink in the sky to work. Am I right or wrong? I don't mind being wrong. You can tell the world I'm wrong if I'm wrong.
The only way I've used it is with receivers on the ground. I didn't necessarily have to have a receiver, but someone with whom I was connected had to have a receiver. So do I think there's Starlink receivers on the ground in Iran? Yes. Do I think that the system, he has to align the system properly so it can be utilized by the people? Potentially. So I think the question might be, is Starlink being aligned so they can properly be utilized by people, who are not complicit with the government? And that's a good question to ask him. But
okay.
Not
Quick
everyone
bonus
has.
question. Do we have the capability of interrupting their jamming, which is going on, of Starlink and other cyber efforts? Do we have a cyber tool available that can hit them that we don't have to see?
We have cyber tools and kinetic tools, and we are world-class counter jamming, suppressing jamming with our kinetic tools. We're very good at it. And you only have to do it once before the guy who owns the jamming system says, I'd prefer to not be on. So I would, that's a kinetic weapon that can be released at them. But in addition, do I think they're cyber tools? Yes.
Admiral Mark Montgomery, Rear Admiral Montgomery, thank you so much for joining us on both the shipbuilding and the Iranian question. We'll talk to you again soon on both. I appreciate your time. I was just reading online, joined by David Bahnsen, CEO of the Bahnsen Group. David, Happy New Year to you. Good to talk to you. I was just reading that President Trump has imposed a secondary tariff on Iran, 25% additional tariff on the goods of any country that does business with Iran. I've never seen that before. Have you?
Well, I think there have been other issues with smaller countries. And obviously there was a layering of tariffs and sanctions is a better word for it with Russia after the Ukraine invasion. But I mean, trying to freeze Iran out seems to me to be pretty good foreign policy.
Now, it is a tariff. I know you don't like tariffs, but that's a national security tariff if ever one was, correct?
Yeah, that's not, I wouldn't consider that a protective tariff in any way, shape, or form. It would be a national security sanction, right?
So what I expect the Supreme Court to do with the case before it is to remand the case without a decision for tariff by tariff examination by the district court as to whether or not there's a national security nexus. In other words, punt. Is that your expectation?
Well, look, you would be more of an expert than I would on the legal side of it. They were not national security rationales for the case that is before the Supreme Court now. It's under IEPA, which is an economic emergency. There is a different rationale between 232 and 301 for national security, and no one has even contested the potential constitutionality of those. I don't happen to believe the steel and aluminum tariffs remotely represent a national security concern, but that's different than the case for the Supreme Court, which is under an economic emergency, where they're claiming that trade deficits are in and of themselves economic emergencies. And I would very much hope that the constitutionalist and originalist on the court would laugh this out. But
I'm actually an originalist, and I think the IEPA was written in such a way as to give the court pause. But let's put that aside. What I really wanted to talk to you about is the new year. I'm very conservative going into this new year because I think there hasn't been a correction in a while. What are you telling your clients, David?
Well, I wrote a 20-page annual review commentary forecast that we do every year that is up at dividendcafe.com, went out on Friday. And I'm talking about the different themes we have, our concerns about the AI theme, which I was on with you late last year talking about. And I believe the valuation concern, it isn't so much going a long time without a correction. I mean, look, the NASDAQ was down 30% and S&P were down 20% for a few days last April.
True.
So you've had volatility, but the valuations and concentration in the broad market are very high, and we are definitely encouraging clients, the way we're managing money, to be much more selective.
So when the president is in an open conflict with the Fed, and there might be a DOJ investigation about the Fed's architectural overhaul, does that have any impact on the market, or should it?
Yes, it should, in the sense that if people believed it were a pretextual intervention to central bank independence, which I think it's unquestionably it is. But I believe the reason markets shrugged it off today, Hugh, is that they don't really take it seriously. I think they view it as jawboning, jockeying, bowling a little bit to try to make sure that Chairman Powell, when his chairmanship term ends in a few months, that he leaves and not tries to stay for the next 19 months till his Fed governor term ends. There's no legal requirement that he leave, but you got to go back to 1948 since the last time a Fed chair did not leave when their chairmanship ended. I think Chairman Powell is going to leave. I don't like this investigation and the pretext behind it, but I do think markets shrugged it off today for that reason.
No, I'm an agnostic as to whether or not there is a pretextual investigation going on here, or whether or not they actually spent $1 billion they didn't have. I'm open to that. What I'm curious about, you mentioned originalism. I don't think there should be an independent central bank, David. That's not in the Constitution. There can be a legislation for it, but I think the president ought to be able to remove every person in Article 2. You're an originalist. What do you make of he doesn't get there's a bank, it's legal, but I think he ought to be able to replace the bankers.
Yeah, the problem we have, Hugh, you and I are going to be on the exact same side of this. I also believe that you can't go create something that exists in sort of outer space within our separation of powers. Let me just be clear so my integrity is intact. I don't think the president cares about this stuff at all. I think his motive is he wants someone to do what he says. But your point structurally, that the Fed, from the Federal Reserve Act, which was passed by Congress, exist in a sort of limbo as to where that jurisdiction is between separation of powers. And I'm very uncomfortable with it. And I think the solution to that is to not willy-nilly what parts of the act we follow and parts we don't, but it is to go get legislative review and judicial review to force this to be done constitutionally. Now, you know why I know that can be done? Because we're doing it with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which I also believe was passed unconstitutionally. But these require judicial review done the right way.
So this is the big $1,000 question. If the court upholds the president's right to remove at will anyone in the executive branch, so he can replace every Fed governor, I'm not worried about that, because I don't think he's going to they still have to go through Senate confirmation. They can't be bozos. I think they'll be normal banker types, and they'll be like Jerome Powell at the end. Do you agree?
Yes, I do believe. Look, the president already has the right to appoint them. You're saying if he has the right to fire them at will. Yes. And ultimately, I wouldn't be worried about who would end up on the court as long as the Senate, on the Fed, as long as the legislative branch does its job. It concerns me practically, not structurally, that I don't think we always necessarily have a Senate doing its job, but that is the way that the system is designed and ought to function. Absolutely.
So I believe that we can find 9 Fed governors that would make it. Now, David, I haven't listened to the Dividend Cafe yet. Did you record a podcast on your 20-page magnum opus? I haven't seen it yet.
I did, and I'm going to DM it straight to you when we're done because there's very few people in the country I want to hear it more than you. But yeah, we did the video with all the charts, the podcast, and then there's a full written PDF that came out on Friday. Yes, and just reviewing everything from 25, but then giving our forecasts and themes for 2026.
I want everyone to go to Dividend Cafe, wherever you get your podcasts from, iTunes, Spotify, whatever, and listen to David's year-end, year-beginning summary. His podcast on the AI bubble is also not to be missed, but that's a few weeks back. The new one is the one I want to get. Follow him at David Bahnsen on X. He's also the founder of the Bahnsen Group. David, Happy New Year to you. Thank you for joining me. Don't go anywhere, America, except maybe during the break. You can go like and follow the Dividend Cafe and download this latest year-end, which I will have listened to by the time I'm here tomorrow. Coming up after the break, Sebastian Lai, son of Jimmy Lai, is going to join me this hour. This segment, though, I'm bringing back Mark Dubovitz, who was with us last hour. He is the CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. He's one of the actual people you can trust on Iran. Follow him on X at @mdubovitz. Follow everyone at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. And there are a lot of them. There are a half dozen Iran experts. The FDD is actually the go-to place. Mark, when we ran out of time last hour, I wanted to ask you, President Trump mentioned on Air Force One last night that the regime wants to negotiate. My reaction is, God, no, don't do that, that they're just playing for time. Is that your reaction?
Yeah, Hugh, absolutely. I mean, this is a typical regime trick. Their back is against the wall, so they offer negotiations and try to trap American negotiators. And the only place where they tend to win against America is at the negotiating table. They won against Biden. They won against Obama. They think they could possibly win against President Trump. I think it'd be a big mistake to go back to the table, fundamentally because, number one, it would be a betrayal of the Iranian people that are on the streets. And number two, Hugh, there's no way that Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is going to meet the minimum demands that President Trump has, the full dismantlement of their nuclear, missile programs, and terror networks. No way Khamenei is going to give in to that. And if not, he's just going to play for time, try to divide America, try to divide the White House, try to divide the U.S. from Europe. And he's going to ultimately try to embarrass the president. And I don't think the president is going to be embarrassed and is prepared to be embarrassed. So he needs to enforce the red line that he laid out.
Now, Mark, the Israelis could have killed Khamenei, and no doubt we can kill Khamenei, but there are arguments on both sides. Ought we to leave him alive, or ought we to, if we have the ability, have him shot, killed?
Well, I do think we need to decapitate the leadership of Iran. And that includes Khamenei, but it also includes senior IRGC commanders, those who are in control of the command and control system of Iran, and that includes the repression apparatus. So yeah, if you decapitate the leadership, then there's possibility of others stepping into their place. I mean, that's what President Trump did in Venezuela with Maduro. I think there's more than just Khamenei. There are others, but certainly a decapitation effort should be seriously considered.
All right, now, Mark, how many IRGC bases are there? How many besieged bases? The final Israeli wave was going to hit them. President Trump waved it off in order to bring that conflict to an end last June. How many target sites are we talking about?
So there are dozens and dozens of IRGC and besieged bases all around the country. Obviously headquarters in places like Tehran. But certainly it's a target-rich environment. I mean, the Israelis and the Americans have detailed intelligence on all of these bases, maneuvers, apparatus. This has been studied for years, Hugh. I mean, particularly by the Israelis. I mean, Mossad and military intelligence in Israel have a very, very large and expansive target set, and that information has been provided to the Americans. So there's no shortage of targets. It's just a question of what President Trump will choose.
If President Trump brings down this regime, I think he goes to the top of American presidents, at least since FDR. He's going to actually surpass Reagan. The Soviet Union, of course, dissolved under George H.W. Bush. How would you rank that achievement? I think Iran is a linchpin, and I've got Nixon on the brain. Nixon used to say, it's everything. It's one of the two pillars of the Middle East. And so how big of a moment is this for Donald Trump?
Yeah, I've said publicly, Hugh, you know that if he brings down the Islamic Republic of Iran, he will be one of the greatest foreign policy presidents in modern history, if not the greatest. I mean, the Islamic Republic of Iran, first of all, has killed and maimed thousands of Americans. It has created massive bloodshed and chaos in the Middle East and continued to drag us into these endless wars in the Middle East. It's sponsored terrorism globally. It's threatened to kill President Trump and tried to kill him. And it is tried to build nuclear weapons. It has built a massive ballistic missile program. It's fired hundreds of those ballistic missiles at Israel and missiles and drones at our allies in the Middle East. I mean, it has been such a force for murder, chaos, and violence that to get rid of it and to replace it with something better and more stable, more peaceful, and more prosperous would be a game changer for American national security. And by the way, it would also allow us to do what we need to do, which is to focus our resources in the coming years on the multi-generational threat from the Communist Chinese Party.
Now, I read him your quote, and he laughed. He said, haven't I already done that? He's done pretty well, I've got to admit. Ruining the Iranian nuclear deterrent is a big deal. But do you think we could count on a post-Khomeiniist regime being stable and at least not evil?
Yeah, I mean, President Trump also did say that. He said, I accept that. I accept that in his interview with you. Right. You know, I think he appreciates how important taking down the Islamic Republic is, and I think he has for most of his adult life. I think I don't think we can count on anything in the Middle East, and we certainly can't count on anything in geopolitics. But there's no doubt in my mind that whatever comes next will be much better.
So everyone in your car, go to FDD, Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Follow it at FDD. Follow Mark at M. Dubovitz. And there are lots of other people as well. But make sure they're reliable. Don't believe the regime propaganda. Don't believe the regime apologists. Don't believe people who supported the JCPOA. Believe people like Mark. Thank you, Mark Dubovitz. Last Thursday, I talked to President Trump about a number of things. Second on the agenda was Jimmy Lai and whether or not President Trump had brought up the imprisoned human rights activist with General Secretary Xi Jinping. President said he had, that we haven't got a response from Xi Jinping, and then the president went on to praise my next guest, Sebastian Lai, as being a good son who's been active on behalf of his father. I'm pleased to welcome you back, Sebastian. First of all, I didn't know you had met with the president. That was news, and I'm glad you did. Are you getting more optimistic or still no sign of movement from the People's Republic of China?
First of all, thanks so much again for having me and for mentioning to the president. Yes, it was, look, I mean, having the president care about my father's case and you know, mention my father's name, it gives us a lot of hope. You know, him saying that he will, this is something that he will deal with, this is something that he's working on. And, you know, we're so incredibly grateful. I just want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. And unfortunately, as the president said, China hasn't responded yet. But again, time is running out for my father, so the ball's in their court, and they need to respond soon. Otherwise, my father will unfortunately pass away in prison.
Now, President Trump said that he's old and sick, so he's aware of his condition, but that they haven't heard anything from Xi. Is there a point at which you would naturally expect them to allow him to move to Great Britain? Is there a sentencing, a conclusion point, as they had with Solzhenitsyn? They finally just tossed Solzhenitsyn out because it wasn't worth the problem. Is there a date in your mind you think that they'll do that after some proceeding is finished?
Unfortunately, they're very happy keeping him there. You can see with the torturous conditions that he's under, you know, for solitary confinement has been for the last 5 years, and they've kept on delaying this never-ending trial. It seems that now it's finally getting to its end, and to everybody's surprise, they found nothing. There's nothing that incriminates my father. They have found this man who's given everything that he has for freedom and democracy, stayed in Hong Kong, fought for his people, and you know, I think that's why it's so important for the president to press this case, because you know, the Hong Kong government, these are cruel people. These are people that want to see my father die in jail, and without pressure from the president, that's what the Hong Kong government will do to my father.
I did ask him, Sebastian, if he would consider the release of your father as a significant gesture by Xi Jinping, and he said yes. I kind of count that as a win. Do you see that as a win, that he is putting significance into that sort of, it's a bargaining chip. It's something he wants.
Yeah, definitely. We're so incredibly grateful, and you know, to know that the president cares about my father's case is something that has given our family a lot of hope. And it is. It's the thing is, look, it's a relatively easy thing for Hong Kong and China to do. I mean, it will take them 2 hours to put him on the plane and send them over to the US, to the UK, to wherever. I mean, this is very administratively incredibly easy, and at no cost, and directly beneficial for everybody. So, if they're not even willing to do something as simple as that, it shows a lot of how the Chinese and the Hong Kong view view the cruelty that they're doing to my father.
I'm a great believer that sunk costs cripple governments as well as individuals. They don't realize that there is no benefit to keeping your father in prison. There's one other person in the world besides President Trump, I think, can get their attention. That would be Pope Leo XVI. Has the pontiff said anything about your father?
So the Holy Father has met with my mother and sister publicly, and was so incredibly grateful for that. I don't believe he said anything publicly, but I think he is praying for my father. And for a man in his situation by himself in his cell, knowing that the Holy Father is praying for you, and that there's so many people praying for him worldwide, it gives him immense strength. I mean, this is what he's going through is something that I think would break many people. And his faith, the knowledge that he has done the right thing is what keeps him going.
Sebastian, what can the audience do besides pray for you and your family and your father?
Please write to your representatives, follow the story along, and I mean, besides pray, but praying is a huge thing as well, especially in a case like my father's, where they keep him solitary to tell them that nobody cares about him, that nobody cares that he sacrificed everything for democracy. I think it's something that would matter to him tremendously. But write to your representatives and just tell the story whenever you have the chance to.
Has anyone been allowed to sit down with him? Your sister, the barrister who's representing him, yourself? Anyone been allowed to see him in the last 6 months outside of that brief court appearance that I noted?
Yeah, so he doesn't get any. He gets prison visits. Obviously, they're not. Well, anything he says is listened to, but he at least gets prison visits. From my understanding, it's half an hour each time, 4 times a month. So it's a little something to hold on to, but it's nothing.
Sebastian, who goes in to see him? It's got to be dangerous to go there. Who goes in to see your father? The lawyer, your sister, yourself?
Yeah, so lawyers, family members. Unfortunately, because my sister has now spoken out on behalf of my father, she could also no longer go back to Hong Kong. So she made this very conscious sacrifice after very bravely being with my father for the last 5 years by his side, to go out and speak out about the horrendous treatment that he's under and the deterioration of his health, and because of that she can't go back.
Sebastian, please keep us informed. I'll continue to ask the President or the Secretary of State whenever they're on the program about the progress of this guy. I think the more eyes that we can put on Xi Jinping, he could do himself a lot of good in the world if he just let your father go to Great Britain. So our prayers continue with Sebastian. By the way, the President's very impressed with you, and I am too. Thank you for your ongoing efforts on behalf of your dad and democracy in Hong Kong. I appreciate it. Sebastian Lai. Follow Free Jimmy Lai on X. I want to reemphasize what Sebastian Lai just said. The more attention on Jimmy Lai, the better. So please like and follow Free Jimmy Lai or Support Jimmy Lai. There's a hashtag Support Jimmy Lai. There's a X account Support Jimmy Lai. Find them. Just put Jimmy Lai into your search engine. You'll find them and become a part of that effort. Keep them in your prayers, of course. I also want to talk to my older audience right now, those who are 50 and older especially, about how much you're spending on cell phones, because Consumer Cellular is a great, great sponsor of the Hugh Hewitt Show. you can go to consumercellular.org/Hugh, consumercellular.org/Hugh, or you can call them at 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454. Whether you go online or call, they'll ask for a code. You have a promotional code. It's very simple. It's Hugh, H-U-G-H. That will get you a second month of whatever plan you pick with Consumer Cellular. If you make the switch, you'll get your second month for free. So don't forget the code. But what you must really remember is that you can have service, the equal of any service, cell phone service in America, at considerable savings over big cellular. And you can get to a live human being after one touch. Their service centers are in the United States. You hit one button and you talk to a live human being. Get your phone bill out, call them up, and compare side by side. What are you paying? What ought you to be paying? What can Consumer Cellular allow you to pay? If you're over 50, they have a special deal. 2 lines of unlimited data. Keep your number, keep your data, but 2 lines of unlimited data, you and your partner, you and your spouse, for $60 a month, 60. Cannot be beat. But check, no matter what age you are, find out how much data you're using, and then call 800-411-4454, 800-411-4454, and remember my code is Hugh. I'm also in the Relief Factor studio, and I don't want you to forget. Got my 10 miles in. I've already complained about it on the program today. Got my 10 miles in on Saturday. Went up the Implacable Hill this morning, so that's 4. Sunday was not really comfortable because I went farther and faster than I have in a long time because the weather was beautiful and Huntington Beach was just gorgeous. There was an offshore breeze, so you could see past Catalina, see all the oil tankers lined up, all the oil rigs. It was a gorgeous morning on Saturday morning. So I went a little bit farther and a little bit faster than I normally do. And on Sunday, I was paying the price a little bit. Minor aches and pains, they're gone. They're gone because of Relief Factor. And I do credit that with Relief Factor. I think it just makes your body bounce back much more quickly, even if you're doing more than you normally do, even if you've got minor aches and pains because you're getting older, but especially if you're doing exercise like I did. I hadn't done a 10 in 4 months, probably October. And so it was a little bit further than my normal distance. And I'm here to tell you, Relief Factor helps. Call for the starter pack, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800 and the number 4 and the word relief. I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, omega every single day. The starter pack is $19.95, less than $1 a day. And you can find the starter pack either by calling them 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or by going to their website and find the starter pack $19.95 at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com.